Right, thank you. Everyone can hear me in the back, yes? Excellent, that's what we like to hear. Thank you very much. What a warm welcome from everyone. This is my first time in the Southwest. Thank you for having me here. Which means that is what we're going to talk about today. But before we get there, I want to talk to you about the language of business and the language of marketing. Because we love to kind of borrow military phrases, don't we, in marketing and in business? We talk about price wars, and we talk about battlegrounds for talent. And my favourite is bombarding customers. And we borrow this military terminology all the time, and we use it without even really thinking. It's just what we do. But I have a podcast. It's called The Strategy Sessions. It's a marketing podcast. Alistair didn't mention it this morning in his list of top 10 marketing podcasts. The prick. One of the guests I had on was a guy called Mike Follett from Lumen Research. And Mike said, marketing is more like seduction than battle. Now, it wasn't being creepy, and he wasn't being Swiss Tony, for anyone old enough to remember that reference. But what he was talking about was the way that flowers attract bees is like seduction, rather than us bombarding and pushing things towards audiences. We need to seduce them and bring them towards us. But I'm going to take the slightly creepy version of this and see where we get to. But what if you took the seduction thing and took it a little bit further? If this was my Tinder bio, right? Do you think I would get many matches? Now, it's all true. Well, it's mostly true. Andy is 22. Easy fuck. 6'1", possibly. Yeah, okay, we'll give you that. 90 kilos, size 11 feet in lovely trainers. 3 COVID vaccinations and 2 knee operations. Right? Everything on that's true. But is it a good Tinder bio? Stick with that for a second. I'm going to tell you something more about me because this is my favourite subject. My name is Andi Jarvis. I'm a marketing strategist. I have a podcast called The Strategy Sessions. I don't really like talking about it, but, you know, there's 60-some episodes out now. Just download them whenever you want. I teach strategy at John Moores Uni and the University of Exeter in Finland. Anyone in here from Exeter University? Excellent. I've really enjoyed my time here. If you need anyone teaching strategy on the marketing course, give us a shout. And I don't just talk about strategy. I work with clients on marketing strategies. This is probably the first time I've used an hands-off matrix since I left uni, but a lot of the stuff I do tends to revolve around newness, that type of stuff. Anyway, I have a podcast, which I don't talk about a lot, but it's called The Strategy Sessions. It makes you think differently. That's the tagline for the podcast. And I interview marketing thinkers from around the world and just really get to pick their brains is what I do. I'm based in Belfast and Liverpool. You're thinking, how does he do that all at once? I just like airports and travel. Belfast is where the Titanic was built, and Liverpool, the office is just off Penny Lane, where the Beatles sang about, or Liverpool Football Club, because the Beatles are who your parents and grandparents listen to. And if you want to get in touch, this is the best way. You'll notice I've taken Twitter off because it's a shit show. I don't use Twitter anymore. It's a nightmare. But Instagram, I'm doing my best to use Threads, and where I'm Jarvis Andy, but I'm Andi Jarvis on LinkedIn even. And if you scan that QR code, you can join my mailing list where I'll send you the podcast every couple of weeks. So not that I'd like to talk about it. Right, let's get on. That slide comes up at the end again, so if you missed out, don't worry. Everything old is new again. In marketing, we are obsessed with the future. We're obsessed with what the future's going to look like. We're obsessed with what tool we're going to use next. We're obsessed with getting that next advantage and getting in front of the game. But if you understand what is coming from the past, you can get a better idea of where we might be going in the future. Because there's a lot of clues if you look to the past and if you look at the history of marketing and sales and other disciplines that will help us understand where we're going to go in the future. And that is where which means that comes from. Now, I didn't invent this. I was taught this 20-ish years ago by somebody, and I'm pretty sure he didn't invent it either. He was taught it about 30 years before that. And I'm pretty sure the person who taught him it didn't invent it either. So he was taught it about 20 years before that. The best research I can find tells me that this comes from the 30s or 40s, right? And it was sales training, which means that. And we're going to dig into it, and we're going to unpack it. And back to my Tinder bio then. What's wrong with it? Everything on that Tinder bio, except for my age, is right. It's all accurate, but it's all just information about me. But you look and you go, yeah, it's a Tinder bio, Andy, but we're here for a marketing conference. But how many of you, when you're talking about the products and the services that you have, treat your marketing in this way? How many of you just list features and more features and more features and then even more features and then just provide more features to the product about that? How many people just talk to your clients in this way? Our product does this, it does this, it does this, it does this, it does this. So what? Nobody cares. So I'm going to give you some examples, and a lot of it I'm going to go around talking about vacuum cleaners. Now, why am I talking about vacuum cleaners? I don't have a fetish for vacuum cleaners. I just find them a really great example. I could stand up here and I could talk about Nike doing this, and I could talk about Apple endlessly on this presentation, which means that. I could do it all the time. But if you work with a product that is not quite as sexy as Apple, you sit there going, yeah, but how does this apply to me? I talked to John Payne a couple of years ago. Hello, John.
Hello.
Hello, John. He's out at the back. And he used to have a client who sold ball bearings. Right? Now, that's probably a little bit boring even for this presentation, but if you can understand how this works through vacuum cleaners, you'll be able to juggle it with your own business. I was talking to Harriet earlier this morning, who works in niche B2B, selling engineering equipment. Same things apply. So let's talk about something boring. Now, you look at my Tinder bio. Oh, no, that's not it. Go the other way. And it lists features. You look at how we sell products, and what do? We just list features of the product. That's from one website called Appliances Online, where we list a lot of features. And you go, yeah, that's just one website. So I went to Currys, and what do? They just list all the features of vacuum cleaners. And you might say, that's a product listing page where comparing features is what that page is about. So let's go to the product information page, and what's the first thing? Top features. Do you know what the top feature of the top features is? It cleans carpets and hard floors. Well, no shit. That's what I'm here for. And, okay, maybe, is this just vacuum cleaners who are terrible? What about SaaS products? We do site audits, rank tracking, backlink analysis, keyword research, feature. I have a podcast that I don't talk about a great deal. And I looked for some new podcasting software to record. This is from Descript or Riverside, or all of them. What do? Here's the features of our product. This advert I saw the other day, if I'd have seen this ad 3 weeks ago, I'd have built the whole presentation around it, because it is possibly the worst ad ever to see the light of day on Instagram. And it's from Volkswagen of all people, right? First of all, how large is the ID Buzz's boot capacity? 821 litres, 1,021 litres, 1,121 litres. Do you know what the correct answer is? No one gives a fuck is the correct answer. Because nobody knows what it means, right? Nobody has the first idea what that means. And it's not just the worst advert in the world for that. This tiny bit of text here that you can't read says, if you get close enough, ID Buzz Life model shown is not UK specification. So why are you showing it to me then? I'm based in the UK, it's on Instagram, you know where I am. You know what shop I'm in, you know what apps this person's got on the phone, you know what I looked at yesterday, you don't know what fucking country I'm in. Anyway, so this is the worst advert in history. I'll talk about it later. You can imagine Mike sat on the podcast with me, the podcast I don't really like to talk about, well, that's called the Strategy Sessions, 63 episodes you can download now. You can imagine Mike sitting on the other end of the screen going, where is the seduction? Where is the seduction? And do you know how you get the seduction into it? Which means that. Now, before I'm going to tell you how to do it, I'm going to explain why it works. Now, someone cleverer than me once described people as chimps in shoes. And he probably wasn't wrong, right? We are evolved from chimps. Most people generally accept that these days. And we share something in common with chimps, and it's in the brain. Now, there's some fancy terms for it, like we could talk about the hypothalamus and the hippocampus and stuff like that. But it's much easier to lean on clever people and talk about it in more accessible ways. Steve Peters, Professor Steve Peters, who wrote The Chimp Paradox, talks about the three important parts of the brain for what I'm going to talk about in 3 ways. He talks about the chimp, the person, and the computer. Now, in very simple terms, the chimp is the bit we share with, well, chimps. It has emotion, it has feelings, but not necessarily language or rational thinking. The person has rational thinking, and the computer is information storage, right? Think about that through, say, the lens of road rage for a second, and then I'll come back to marketing. So think how road rage works. You're driving along a road in your little metal box. Someone pulls out of a junction at a metal box slightly earlier than you thought they should have done. They don't hit you, you don't hit them. All that you have to do is brake ever so slightly. That's it. And what happens if you're a road rager? And we all know someone, and it's probably you, and it used to be me. Right? That metal box pulls in front of you, and you are out. Ah! Because the chimp is where fight or flight lives as well. So you get to that point and you're suddenly driving inches from their back bumper. You're driving dangerously. You're screaming. You're shouting. You're telling that person, you try and get to them at a traffic light. That's the chimp. Now, the thing with the chimp is it's the fastest reacting part of the brain. It's there to keep you safe. But it can't last very long. So after a little while, the person goes to the computer, gets the information out and goes, hold on a second. Nobody's been hurt here. Nothing's damaged. Everything's okay. The chimp gets tired, goes back home, and the person gets that bit of post-rationalisation. And that's when you sat at the next set of traffic lights going, oh, you dick. Right? And those people are laughing at the road rages. I know. And honestly, I was like this the whole time, just angry all the time. So the chimp moves quickly. The person moves a little bit slower, but gets the rational information. And that is generally how the brain works. Now, what we do when we talk about features is we talk to the computer. And those people who talk about something else can talk to the chimp, and that's what we're going to get into. You might think this has a bit of a link with the more pop sciencey Start With Why by Simon Sinek, or Simon Sinek, or however you pronounce his name. If you haven't read his book, don't waste your time. It's one of the shittest things you'll ever read. Possibly the worst business book of all time. That's not because Start With Why doesn't make any sense. It's just the book is filler, right? Go and watch the TED Talk. It's about 12 minutes long, and it's brilliant. It tells you everything you need to know. The rest of the book is just filler for the TED Talk. It is a complete and utter waste of your life. Watch the TED Talk. It's great. He talks about the what, the how, the why, the golden circles, right? And about trying to hit people in an emotive way. You see, there's a little bit of correlation between the three areas, the what, the how, the why. The why is the chimp, right? It's the bit that just feels, doesn't think, it feels. And that's what you're trying to get to with the why. Now, something that everyone can get on board with, let's talk about wine for a minute. University of Adelaide, South Australia, did a study. And when they ran the study, it gave them some results that they didn't fully expect. So they ran it again, and again, and again, and again. And every time they ran it, they got exactly the same results. Here's what they did. They gave a group of wine drinkers, they came and gave them a glass of wine. Right? That was it. Just a glass on the table of white wine. And they said, give it a drink. So they give it a little quaff. They had to give it a score, a rating against three things. Would they buy it again? How much would they pay for it? And give it a score out of 10. Okay? That was called blind testing. Next up, they gave them what they called informed testing. They put the bottle of wine on the table in front of them, poured them a drink, and they could pick up the bottle. They could have a look at it, they could read the label, they could go, oh, have you seen this? It's all right, it's wonderful. Have a chat about, as you do when you're having a bottle of wine at the table, or when you're in Tesco or whatever buying one. Drink it, and then they had to score it. Would they buy it again? How much would they pay for it? Give it a score out of 10. And then finally, they had what they called the elaborate taste test, where they brought a wine expert in, and the wine expert would come and go, so this is made by the Jarvis family up in the Adelaide Hills. They still crush the grapes the old way with the feet, and Granny's still in the business who started it years ago. Have a taste of this. Can you get the strawberry notes on the back of the tongue? You get that, but it's a little dry at first, and then it's a bit fresh afterwards. Notes of hazelwood and dog shit, or whatever it is that they say. Right. So, and they did that. So that's the elaborate testing. And the results were interesting. When they looked at the scores, the elaborate testing, the wine scored the top score. People rated it that they would pay more for it. And would they buy it again? Hell yes. The next highest score was the informed consent, where they had the bottle. They said they'd pay a medium to high price for it. They'd probably buy it again, and they scored it fairly high. Over here with the blind taste testing, it scored fair to middling. Not everyone would buy it again. Nobody would pay a massive amount for it. Now, most of you aren't daft. You know what's going on here, don't you? In every single test, it was the same wine. Now, why did people... These aren't idiots. These aren't people who've been caught out. Why did people think that the wine tasted differently? Why did it taste differently? They scored it with a higher score. They said it tasted better. They said they would pay more money for it. All because some fella in a suit told them a little bit about somebody's granny who stood on the grapes with their feet. Why is that? Because they hit the chimp bit of the brain. So how can you do that in your business? If you're selling things online, how do you hit the chimp bit of people's brains? When someone goes on a product page on your computer, on their computer, they hit a product page, open it up. You use reverse IP tracking, you find out where they are, you get one of the sales team to go around. Hi, I hear you're looking at one of our products, right? I've got all the information you need about it. course you don't do that, right? That doesn't work. It doesn't scale. You can't do that. You can't stalk people around the house. You have to think about fab. That's how you do it. And I don't mean 1960s fab and groovy. I'm talking about fab content, okay? And I'm going to explain what fab content is through the lens of vacuum cleaners again. I love a vacuum cleaner. Now, this room's too big to do this properly, so I'm going to explain what happens if I do it in a smaller room. I actually do a live test, which gives you huge potential for it to go wrong, but there's too many people here to do it. We've got a Vax at this side, and we've got, oh, no, it's the other way around. We've got a Vax at that side, and we've got a Shark at this side. So I said to groups of people, I was like, right, which one would you buy? Go and stand that side if it's a Shark, that side if it's a Vax. And you tend to get 55, 45%, right? It's usually pretty even. And you say to people, why have you stood Vax side? And, oh, I've had a Vax before, it was great. Why are you at the Shark side? Some people say, I love it because it's wired, so you usually get better suction or whatever, right? But there's no information to go on. So you don't really know. What if we gave you some more information? What if we said the Vax has 600 watts of suction and the Shark has 500 watts? One is lightweight and has a HEPA filter, and the Shark has stair mode and is badless. Now what do you do? And what tends to happen is you end up with about 65% of people go and stand and tell you that the Vax, it's that side. It's flipping the slides, I'm going over this way. They'll tell you that the Vax is better. You say, well, why do you think the Vax is better? So it says 600 watts, isn't it? And 600 is bigger than 500, so 600's got to be better, right? Isn't it? I don't know. I don't know anything about vacuum cleaners. I just talk about them in marketing presentations. I've never built one. Is it better? Who knows? But you tend to get more people tell you that 600 is better. Okay. But this is where fab comes in. We talk about fab content. And if you talk about fab, I don't mean fab and groovy. I mean features, advantages, and benefits. So you have to talk and walk your customer through the reasons why they should buy it. So let's go back to look at our vacuum cleaners. We know that the Vax has 600 watts of suction, is lightweight, and has a HEPA filter. That is a feature, another feature, and another feature. But if I was to tell a group of people and say, well, let's have a look at the Shark. It's got 500 watts of suction. It removes more allergens from your carpet, and that'll give you a healthier family. That's a feature, an advantage, and a benefit. Now, what do you want? And what happens is you end up with about 65, 70% of people move over to the Shark. So when you talk to the 30 who are still over there looking at the Vax, you say, why are you still here? And some people will say things like, well, I've had loads of Vaxes and they've always been great. Some people say, I hate my family and I don't want a healthier family, I want them all to die. And all that's perfectly fine. But generally speaking, by giving them a feature, an advantage and a benefit, people tend to think, oh, I'm going to go for the Shark. Now, just take this a step further, right? I'm talking about it in a bit of abstract terms, but I don't know if I've mentioned, I have a podcast that I don't know if I've mentioned, but the reason I have a podcast is I always wanted to be on radio, and I was never any good at radio, so I started a podcast. But if I could do radio scripts, this is what I'd do. Here's how a radio script might look for this Vax. You ready? The new Vax 12345 has 600 watts of suction, is lightweight, and comes with a HEPA filter for just £99. You can see why I didn't get the voiceover job, right? But again, that's what it looks like when you just put features into copy. And again, just a reminder, we talk about features all the time when it comes to selling vacuum cleaners. Feature, 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 here we are. But remember, we've got features, advantages, and benefits. And how much better does it sound when you start giving people all this information? But here's the kicker. Sinek's book was called Start With Why, right? You come up with information, features, advantages, and benefits, but you tell the story the other way around. You tell it benefits, advantages, features. So how does this sound when you read the radio ad out for the Shark? Have a healthier and happier family by removing more illness-causing allergens from your carpets with our 500 watts of suction Shark cleaner. When I then ask the groups of people which would you buy, you end up with 90% of people wanting the Shark. All because you've given them the information, you've given them better information, an advantage and a benefit, and you've told them the story, benefits, advantages, and features. Now you might be sitting there going, cool story, bro, but how do I do that for my brand? Well, I'm glad you asked. You ready? You ready? This is the big reveal. I don't really do hacks and tips and tricks, but this is as close to one as it is, which means that back to where we started from. This is how you do it. Now, if you are interested in how you do this properly, I need you to take your camera out of your pocket, or out of your purse, or your bag, or whatever, and get ready to take a photograph of this next slide in 1 minute. Okay, or once number 3 comes up, because this is how you do it, okay? You write down, take a piece of paper, and turn it landscape, right? That's landscape to those who weren't in the video class earlier on. Down the left-hand side, you write all of your features. If you don't know what all of your features are, go to your website and it will be full of the fuckers. If you're not entirely sure what all your features are, go and get a flyer and it'll be all over them. If you're not sure what your features are, go and pull a banner stand out with a cupboard and it'll be written all over them. If you're not sure what your features are, go and listen to your sales team on a call and they'll just be parroting them off at people time and time again. That's where you get all your features from. Now, you will probably get somewhere between 10 to 25 features. It depends on your product. Now, I've got a water bottle here. Right? This is a bit of an off-the-cuff thing, but there we go. Feature, water bottle, can be branded. 1, holds 500 millilitres. 2, keeps things cold. 3, keeps things hot. 4, it comes in a range of colours. 5, is smash-proof because there's no glass in it. 6, that's one product. I've come up with 6 already, and I've honestly not even thought about it until then. So typically you get 10 to 25 depending on how complicated your product is or what it is, right? Write them all down the left-hand side of the page. Now, this is the killer bit, right? You ready? Next to each feature, you write the words, which means that. You ready? And then you write the answer. Magic, right? And I promise you, it's absolute magic. This is the picture you want. This is the slide you want to take a picture of. I shall pause. Remember, it's Jarvis Andy on Instagram. I'll get my double chins out. Right. High fives. That's it. You've done. Marketing has been saved. We've got it. Okay, a bit abstract. What does this look like? So let's talk about vacuum cleaners. 500 watts of suction, which means that it collects more dust in less time. Stair mode, which means that it's easier to clean the stairs. 2-ton axle load. We're not talking about vacuum cleaners anymore, by the way. I'm just giving you some wider examples, which means that it carries 2 adult horses. If anyone is a horse fan, I genuinely know nothing about horses. I'm just trying to give examples here, right? 100% uptime. You might be a SaaS product, which means that your site is always online. 4.8 star rating on Trustpilot, which means that people love our product, right? By having a feature, writing which means that, you make it into a question, and then you just need to answer it. And you start to bring your content to life. But I've already noticed, you lot aren't stupid, right? You're not daft, you got the wine thing. And you're already sitting there going, hold on, but you said features, advantages, and benefits, and you've just given us features and advantages. So, more magic to come. Are you ready for this? Here's the next big reveal. So you started that. You've now got a page. You've got features, which means that advantages. Hopefully you knew what was coming, so your advantages are only in the middle of the page. Because you know what's coming next? You write, which means that, to the side of it. And at the end of that, you answer it again. High five! Right? That's it. So what does that look like? I've had to lay them out a little bit differently so you can see them at the back. So, the 500 watts of suction, which means that it collects more dust in less time, which means that, and the answer is, you could protect your family from germs. Or you could say, it has a stair mode, which means that it's easier to clean the stairs, which means that you can spend less time cleaning. Or top marks, if anyone can actually answer what that headline did say. Now the whole town will know that I might give a prize to anyone who can send me a message with it later on. Now, 2-ton axle load, which means that it carries 2 adult horses, which means that you can spend more time riding. As in, you can tie the horse up, ride the other one when it's tired, switch round, right? I don't know horses, right? So let's move on. Or you can have 100% uptime, which means that your site is always online, which means that you can make money while you sleep. 4.8 star rating on Trustpilot, which means that people love our product, which means that you can buy with confidence. By answering that question twice, you tend to get to a benefit. Now, you've probably noticed that the benefits are all fairly touchy-feely. They have a slightly different feel to them. Advantages are often quite practical. Benefits give you that, your family's going to be better. More time doing the thing I want to do. What do you say about the chimp part of the brain? It's emotion. It's not thinking. It's not rational. It's emotion. So what do you get when you hit that? You hit the benefit, and you start talking to the chimp inside people's heads. High five. Now let's come back to that ad for a second. How much better could that have been? How much different could it have been? Take the whole family away camping for a weekend with our 1,200 litres of boot space. Get the wheelchair and the pushchair in the boot at the same time with our 1,200 litres of boot space. Right? How much better is the ad already with an idiot from Bradford who isn't a copywriter writing the copy for it? Because it's awful. And that's all by using 3 words, which means that. Now, I need to tell you a couple of things about which means that. The first of all is, which means that is idea generation. Right? It's how you come up with the ideas. It is not, and I repeat, it is not a copywriting tool. Right? Because if you write your copy like this, you sound like a serial killer in waiting. Right? If your copy writes, the VAX 12345 has 500 watts of suction, which means that it collects more dust in less time, which means that you can protect your family from germs. It has a stare mode, which means that. Honestly, number 1, you deserve replacing by AI. Number 2, you're not going to be in a job for very long, right? It is not copywriting, it is idea generation. And remember what I said, features, advantages, benefits, but tell the story, benefits, advantages, features. So when you have all this with you, which means that, this is what the content can look like. So there you are, feature, which means that, advantage, which means that, benefit. So what does your copy look like? Make money while you sleep, because your site will always be online with a 100% uptime guarantee. That's one sentence. So don't tell me you can't write your Google ads like that. Don't tell me your social posts can't follow the same format. Don't tell me your SERPs can't, your metadata can't have it. You can write whole blog posts using benefits first, advantages second, and finishing with features. It's a structure. I'm giving you it in a sentence. If you can do it in a sentence, you can do it in any size you want. You buy with confidence because 2,000 people love this product and it's rated 4.8 stars on Trustpilot. I've added a little bit in there, 2,000 people, right? You can add bits into it. You can start playing around with it and riffing off it. Because once you've got it, with all your which means that's in, that's when you use your skill as a copywriter to turn it round. Now, a couple of caveats to tell you, because if you're going back to the office and you're going, I know what we're going to do tomorrow, you need to know these things, right? So the first caveat is, every feature I've ever done, whenever I've done this, and I've done it loads of times, every feature has an advantage. If you have a feature and you can't think of an advantage, go back to the product team and say, why the hell have you put this thing on the product? And they'll tell you. Because if they've added something and it doesn't have a reason, they're costing you money on production probably, right? So if a feature doesn't have an advantage, get them to take it off. But if you don't know, just ask them. Ask whoever makes the thing that you're selling, why is that button there? And they go, oh, that button does this thing. Great, there's your advantage. It's there. But not every feature has a benefit. When you do this exercise of, say, 20 features down one side, you should be hitting 20 advantages. Typically, you get 3, 4, maybe 5 benefits at a stretch. Not every feature has some soft, touchy-feely benefit. If your clicker has 8 buttons rather than 6, you're going to struggle to tell me that's going to make my family's world better, right? Because it's not. It's just going to help me click through a presentation faster. So not every feature has a benefit, right? But when you come up with your benefits, you often find the same benefit might come up over and over again. And if your company's pretty good, and I know we're talking brands next and we've been talking brands before, what tends to happen is you start to see this going over, you start to see the same things coming up. And if you take a step back from the exercise you're doing, you go, hold on, I've seen some of these benefits before. I've seen them in our company's brand house. Now, I'm going to guess about 30% of you are using a brand house and the rest of you are sitting going, what the fucking hell is a brand house? But that's okay. That's what a brand house is. It's typically a way of organising content and organising ideas in your organisation. You have a mission statement at the top and the things you're trying to achieve, and you see like the brand statement looks like a roof. I call these pillars the reasons to believe. What are the things that are holding the roof up? If you say you're going to do this thing, what are the pillars that are holding the roof up? I'm going to do that. So if you're selling vacuum cleaners, And you keep saying, oh, we've got a stair mode. But why? What's the advantage? It saves you time cleaning. Oh, right, okay. Or, the suction gets more germs out of your carpet to give you a healthier farm. Oh, great. Over time, you'll probably find that those things are appearing in your brand house as the three things that hold the two or three things that hold the roof up. In Eximo Marketing, my company, I talk about marketing strategy. I talk about equality through education. And I talk about human-centric marketing. They're the three pillars of my business, the three reasons to believe. If you've connected with me on LinkedIn, if you go and have a look on LinkedIn after this presentation, have a look down through the last posts that I've written. And when I say last post, go back about 3 years and see if you can find a post that doesn't fit into either human-centric marketing, equality through education, or marketing strategy. In fact, on the podcast that I don't really like to talk about, I've just done a 5-episode mini-season for Black History Month talking about raising quality through education. Right? It all becomes the same things. Now, one of the benefits of this, there you go, is that if your benefits do appear in your brand house, this is what you start talking about all the time. Excuse me. And it becomes a bit of a cheat code for you, because you can start to program the brain. Now, I'm going to go back to that story I told you about me and being a bit road ragey. I went to counselling a couple of years ago, and not about road rage, although we talked about road rage quite a lot. It became a big topic of conversation. And it was my counsellor introduced me to the chimp paradox, which actually then became a really great book for work. But one of the things he talked about is what's going to happen. You're driving down a road, and that metal box pulls up the side. What can happen? Two things. They can either pull out in front of you, or they can pull out behind you. That's it. If you're driving down a motorway, you're doing 75 because you're illegal and you break the law and you're a terrible person in the outside lane, and there's a car in the middle lane. What can that car do? They can brake, in which case you'll go past them. They can pull out in front of you, pull out behind you, or go in the left lane. 4 things. That's it. Everything has a very finite number of options in that scenario. And if you can tell the computer all the time, this is the 2 things that can happen. We're pulling up to a junction. That car can either pull out in front or pull out behind. Pull out in front, pull out behind. So when the car pulls out in front, the chimp jumps up to protect you. But because you've programmed it already, the person just looks at the chimp and goes, "It's all right, mate. I've got this. I'm here already. It's fine." When the car pulls up in front of you on the motorway, you go, "It's all right, mate. Chimp, you go and have a sit down again, mate. It's fine. I knew what was going to happen," because these things go along. Jump back into marketing terms. If I said every little helps, what would you say? Tesco. If I said just do it, you would say, right. And why? Because they have consistency, telling you the same things over and over and over again. And if you build a brand house, or you have a brand house, and you use these pillars effectively, especially if they're the emotive ones as well, you keep telling people over and over and over again, it becomes a cheat code, because you're talking to the chimp, but you're talking to the person as well. You hit emotional and rational. I feel on dodgy ground talking about this, because it's quite hard for a man with absolutely no hair to talk about shampoo. But have you seen a shampoo advert? What do? They have a great picture of, excuse me, while my sore neck is, somebody, usually a woman, waving her hair around like that. Emotional. And then it's like, science, numbers, something like this, developed in a lab, will make your hair better. Rational. It's hitting the chimp and the person every time. Emotional and rational. Think of any great campaign that hit emotional and rational all the time. Here's another caveat for you. Features. You're probably thinking, Andy hates features, absolutely despises them, hates everything about them. No, I don't. Features are really important, and features can be your friend, because they can be really useful for comparison, especially if you've got more features. Because 600 watts versus 500 watts, which is better? Everyone thinks 600 is better. So if you've got more features, it can be really useful, especially if you're a challenger brand. I don't think I've met anyone in the world who thinks that Microsoft products are the greatest thing at what they do. But everyone uses them. Right? I have a Mac, I use Microsoft products all the time. But if you're a challenger brand, you can try and outflank the incumbent by showing lists like this. You've seen it all over the internet when you've been going to buy something. Here's all the reasons why you should buy our thing. Here's 10 things we do better than the other thing. Tick, 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 tick. You can use features like that to outrank and tell everyone you're better than the incumbent. That works really, really well if you're a challenger. But you can also use features, there we go, You can use features to upsell people. These are 3 coffee machines from the same company. Do you want to buy the first one at $120 with this pathetic 2 ticks? Do you want to spend $120? Do you want to spend $130 for a few more ticks? Or do you want to spend $150 for all of the ticks? You want all of the ticks, don't you? Of course you want all of the ticks. And all that is a list of features. How big's the reservoir of water? How many brewing settings? Does it have a digital clock? Who cares if their coffee machine has a digital clock? But here it is, okay, all right. But here it is as a feature to show you that you should be spending 150 instead of 120. Features can be useful. This isn't on my website anymore, but it is a shot from my website a couple of years ago. B2B marketing, right? B2B marketing stands for business to business, not boring to boring. Right? And anyone who's in business to business, there's somebody yawning over there, absolutely knows full well business to business is boring to boring. Why? Because everyone in business just lists features all the time. It's all you do is throw features at people. Right? Go to a B2B expo and have a look at the banner stands, and they're just full of information, shitting it at you all everywhere. Right? I mean, there's a myth in B2B sales that there's a myth of what they call a rational purchaser. Right? That people act rationally in buying decisions. And there's never been a shred of evidence for it. It's absolute nonsense. But there's a reason for it. If you're going to spend a lot of money on a big ticket item in B2B, you have to, first of all, put a business case together, get the money off finance. You then have to go through some sort of beauty parade to get some vendors to come in and show you their thing. You then shortlist it and you go through it again. You then sometimes do some tire kicking and some testing. You bring some more people in. And there's a very rational, structured process that gets you to a decision. So people go, well, because of that, B2B buying is rational. Is it bollocks? B2B buying is just as emotionally driven as any other thing. If you qualify it and tell people why the thing does it better, that really helps get your sale over the line. The other caveat I had for you is, here's a picture of me in Athens. I'm not just showing you my holiday photographs. I spoke at a conference in Athens earlier this year, and I could show you a picture from the conference, but they all look exactly the same, right? They just look identical. So here's me looking at the Acropolis. Lovely place. You should go and have a look at it. I asked a room of 300 e-commerce practitioners how many of them had had a conversation with a customer in the last 6 months. Right? Not looked at a report, had a conversation. That meant exchanging words. It could be a telephone call, it could be a Zoom call, it could be a focus group, it could have been standing in store, it could have been dealing with a complaint. Any way you deal with exchanging words with customers, how many of you have done it? Right? In 6 months. Now, before I tell you the answer to how many people have done it in Athens, I'm going to ask you the same question. Put your hand up if you've spoken to a customer in the last 6 months. Put your hand down. Keep it up, keep it up, keep it up. Put your hand down if you own the business. Yeah, that happened there as well. Everyone whose hand went up was a business owner, and then you go down, and now I'm left with, what, 20-ish hands? Still up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10, yeah, maybe 20 or so. In Athens, I had 6 hands. 6 people out of 300 had spoken to a customer in 6 months. How do you sell things to people if you don't know anything about them? Oh, but Andy, I mean, we get all the reports through. We look at the Facebook sales data. Who cares? What happens when you talk to customers? They tell you stuff. It's amazing. It's a superpower. 20 out of, 300 or so? 6 out of 300. If you want a cheat code to get in front of what everyone else is doing, go and talk to your customers. I had this designed by Gaynor, who does a lot of graphic design for me. Love it so much that guess what? We've put it on t-shirts, right? If you want some marketing merch, scan that QR code. I'm still waiting for the samples to come through, and I don't want to sell any until I've got the samples and I know they're good. But if you do that and sign up to my email list, when the merch is out, I'm going to email it to everyone. Talk to your customers. It will go on my gravestone. That's what I say to people all the time. Go and talk to them. Because I have a podcast, by the way, right? It's about 63 episodes. You can go and download them all now. But that line at the bottom makes you think differently. Do you know where that came from? Have a guess. Talking to a customer. Yeah, there we are. Who was here last year? Yeah, Azim, little fella, bald head. I mean, very little fella, he was only about this tall. Yeah, little fella, Azim. Azim said, I love the strategy sessions because it makes you think differently. What? Do you know what that sounds like? That sounds like a great strapline for my podcast, because you talk to customers and you hear what they have to say. Now, I know it can be difficult. It can sometimes be really difficult. But if you go for, say, focus groups, I'm not even sorry. I'm really not. If you have focus groups, some people hate focus groups. Like, oh, focus groups are biased. You get 10 people in a room and they just whinge at you, right? That means you don't know how to run a focus group. But run focus groups. Find out more. This isn't a session on how to run focus groups. Well, maybe I have to come back and do another one. But run focus groups and listen to what? Listen for emotive language. I ran some focus groups for a car company, and I asked them if I could put a clip in, because it's amazing. I can tell you about the problem, I just can't show you the clip, and I can't tell you about the solution. But in a certain part of the car sector, so car ownership in the UK is about 52% male, 48% female, something like that. In a certain part of the car sector, it's 80% male, 20% female. So we brought a load of women into focus groups and sat down and started talking about the car buying process to understand this. And I could show you the clip with no audio, and you would be able to tell that this woman is telling about a painful experience. You would probably think that it was the time someone tried to murder her. And it's not. She's talking about the time she tried to buy a car and how she was patronised by the people trying to sell her a car. How she was told about they didn't really have it in quite girly colours for her. And how they told her things like, oh, this celebrity drives this car, you might want to buy it. It was a horrible, horrible experience to sit through. But if I could have shown you the clip, right? And when we pitched the solution to the company, we started going through the pitch and they were fairly interested. And then we showed them the clips. And they bought the thing straight away. We didn't even have to finish the pitch. Why? Because we brought the voice of the customer into that pitch. Talk to your customers, because they tell you all these things. They give you, I've broken the clicker now, I've dropped it on the floor. They tell you all the things that are really annoying them, that are really emotive for them, and it's a touchscreen as well, which I didn't realise I'd done. There you go, nobody told me that. Right, anyway, they tell you all the emotive things which light up the chimp. And if you sit and listen to customers, I'm not going to tell you you should be making all your business decisions by going through a focus group. But you listen to their problems and the things that are causing them pain points and the things that they love, and you use that to go off and investigate where you go next. Because if you can build your which means that out of words and phrases that customers are using, it'll be infinitely better than if it's just you and a couple of the sales team sat in a room on your own. One other question, slight aside to the presentation. Does anybody want to talk to customers more but just finds it such a painful process to go through to actually make it happen? Does that happen to anyone? But one hand went up there. No one. Okay, let's start with who wants to talk to customers more? Let's make it that question. There's a few more hands going up. Who would do it more often if it was really easy and really quick? Yeah, it's a problem, isn't it? Running focus groups and stuff takes forever. So, just to finish, which means that are the 3 words that you need. Just use them as idea generation, not as copywriting. That's really, really important, right? So just remember those 3 words. And I would really love for you to connect with me on social media, which means that you'll be the first to hear my marketing thoughts and rants, which means that you'll have a new perspective on marketing. Or, I'd ask you if you want to become a better marketer and learn from some of the smartest marketers in the country by signing up to my email list now, and you'll get a couple of emails a month, probably with a podcast. Thank you very much.